So as of last week or this week this time, Turbo 8 was released, and part of Turbo 8 is I guess the JavaScript side of the equation that's part of Hotwired in a nutshell. And historically, this has been called Turbo Links if you've been in Rails long enough. And this side of the equation, it's just called Turbo. And version 8 was just introduced, which includes a lot of cool features. And specifically to the Rails side, there's a Turbo Rails gem that incorporates the new Turbo features and also just has some nice stuff related to broadcasts and whatnot underneath the hood. I did another video related to morphing. What I want to talk about in this video is just a quick demo of what's coming with the ViewTransition API, which is still experimental. It's only available in Chrome and one other browser at this time, and not Firefox or Safari yet. Safari is usually the lagging one, of course, but the whole idea is kind of hooking into transition event that invokes when a page change occurs. And with Turbo, they kind of hooked into that and did a little magic so you can include it in a Rails app pretty simply. So I'm going to go through that now and just show you the demo that I've got in place. First approach here, I want to be very basic with and just included a transition from new to old using the root element in the DOM. I have a basic vanilla app here with Tailwind CSS using Tailwind CSS gem, not the actual when you run Rails new Tailwind CSS. That gives you some scaffold UI out of the box just to demonstrate the changes here. What I did add that you'll need to add in your app if you follow along is this new meta tag that's called ViewTransition, the name, and we'll have a content of same origin. That'll kind of instruct Turbo 8 to, manipulate the DOM and do whatever it needs to do with the transition API. So what we basically need to do from there is introduce some CSS that allows whatever type of animation we want to occur. Now you can get very granular with this, or you can be, very basic. So in this specific example, I want to show you just the global way to kind of introduce some animation when you create a new page. You'll see a slight fade that happens when I, go from one page to the next. Turbo doing its thing. It's hard to capture, but if you look under the hood and see the source and go up and look in the HTML tag, you should see some changes occur when you click on a link, and you'll see a certain direction be added. There's a slight section here, very tiny guide. I wish I would go into more depth, but it essentially adds these different types of forward, back, and none as far as visit types, and you can hook into that with your CSS and do perform certain animations based on those events. So it's kind of confusing, and if you're not 100% versed with CSS, it gets even more confusing, especially animations, which you can go very deep on. But I wanted to show you some basic examples here of just creating a new post. You'll see the slight fade that occurs and destroy the post. Then we go back to that. Now, if you want to get a little more fancy, I'll comment out this and we'll bring back some additional styles I've added. And it introduces some animation keyframes. So we got some stuff from right to left and then fade in and out. And then you'll want to introduce, I've got these here, which are a little more fancy of combining animations. So we've got a fade out and a slide left when you go from the old view, and a fade in, slide right from the new view. So that kind of gives you a different perspective. Now, doing the same CRUD, we get a slight slide effect now. There we go. And so you'll see it kind of does things based on what you need to do. If you want to go back, you can use the back button. You still get the same effect to get to that. So that's just kind of showing you what you can, what can be done in that specific case. Pretty simple though. Now going one step further, you can take these transitions. I'm going to keep those in effect for now. So you can combine that and actually target certain elements based on a view transition name. So this gets a little more technical, but you can essentially, if you've used CSS Grid ever and you've done any type of CSS where you name spaces in your CSS for like layouts or something, you can define areas, they're known as. This is kind of that same concept, but in this case, you're defining a transition name, and you can name it whatever you want. That way you can reference it in other CSS, which I've done here, and hook into our Turbo direction, then target that new transition new. You can do old as well if you want to change it. Maybe we'll do it that way. Change that old, and then we'll do fade out, and then slide. We'll just keep slide up We could do slide down too, actually. Let's do slide down. And I'll do maybe negative 130. All right, so then when we go and hook into that, I've got this sidebar here, and there's no ID, anything you need to really add. You can, I mean, obviously you can select it however you need to, but in my posts index path, I've got the sidebar that renders here. It's just an aside HTML element. That's how I'm hooking into it. Here's the basic markup I have. It's nothing fancy, just the stuff that almost comes scaffolded with the app. So if we hook into that now, we've got a new effect that was pretty fast, kind of obnoxious to be honest, but when you create that, you can go back to posts, the sidebar slides up, this slides over. So now you can combine those based on different elements on the page. And essentially, you know, the possibilities are kind of endless from there. So if you want to go and experiment more, that's certainly possible. I just wanted to show just a quick idea of what you could be done with this. I think I'm going to remove this slide down part and keep it back to the basics so it just always slides up no matter when you go back. That way it's a little more smooth, in my opinion. So we could update a post, go back, destroy the post. Here's our sidebar sliding up. So this might be useful for, in cases of their blog demo, they have this nice little video here showing a chat kind of UI that allows you to kind of just almost mold together real visually. It's pretty neat. So you can combine all those things, introduce some CSS to your app, and really make it very fluid, which is something that was kind of missing from our server-side rendered apps these days. So Rails is becoming quite a monolith framework, and I'm excited to see these new updates. This one in particular has been super cool to see. With a little bit of CSS, you can go really far. So I hope you enjoyed this. More to come. I'll see you in the next one.